Number 1. The invisible strings. Why people are easier to influence than they think. Have you ever walked into a room, sensed a certain energy, and suddenly found your mood shifting without any obvious reason? Or maybe you've agreed to do something you didn't really want to just because someone phrased the request in the right tone at the right moment? That is influence, and 90 of it happens below your level of awareness. Humans like to think of themselves as rational beings, that they weigh decisions logically, examine options with clarity, and act based on facts. But the truth is, we are emotional creatures first, who justify our choices with logic after we've already made them. Psychologists call it the dual system theory. System 1 is fast, automatic, and unconscious. System 2 is slow, effortful, and deliberate. The kicker? Most of your daily decisions are made by System 1, which means you're being guided by unseen forces more often than you realize. This is what the Stoics understood over 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But how do outside events still shape you? Through triggers and subtle cues. The way someone looks at you. A scent that brings up childhood nostalgia. A tone of voice that reminds you of authority. A well-timed pause. A carefully placed compliment. A moment of silence that makes you fill in the gap with your own thoughts. Here's a modern example. A study once showed that waiters who repeated customers' orders back to them word for word earned 70 more tips than those who just said, "Okay." Why? Because repetition made customers feel heard. And when people feel heard, they let their guard down. That's not just customer service. That's a psychological hook. Most people are walking around with open emotional ports, just waiting for someone to plug into them. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The more unaware someone is of their own mind, the easier they are to influence. But this isn't about manipulation. It's about awareness. Because once you start to recognize these invisible strings, these subtle influences, you can both protect yourself from being manipulated and use them ethically to connect with others. In the coming sections, we'll break down real-world mind tricks backed by psychology and timeless Stoic teachings. And once you start to see them, you'll never unsee them again. Number 2, the echo trick, how mirroring builds instant trust. Imagine meeting someone for the first time. They don't look like you, don't talk like you, don't move like you, and almost instantly, your brain whispers, "Not one of us." But then, imagine they suddenly laugh at the same pace you do, nod when you nod, shift their posture the way you just did. Subtly, naturally, unintentionally. Within seconds, your brain starts whispering something new. "I like this person. I don't know why, but I just do." This is the echo trick, also known in psychology as mirroring. And it's one of the most powerful mind tricks that works on nearly everyone because it plays directly into your brain's deepest social wiring. From birth, we're trained to recognize similarity as a sign of safety. Our survival depended on being part of a tribe. So now, thousands of years later, your brain still rewards you with oxytocin and dopamine when you meet someone who seems like you. The genius of mirroring is that it uses this ancient wiring ethically and effectively. It's not manipulation. It's connection. Here's how it works. 1. Mirror their body language subtly. If they're sitting forward, lean in slightly. If they're animated with their hands, match their energy. Don't mimic, reflect. 2. Pace their tone and tempo. Speak at a similar speed and emotional level. If they're soft-spoken, don't blast them with confidence. Ease in. 3. Use their key phrases. If someone says, "I'm just trying to stay consistent," echo that language later. That makes sense. Staying consistent really is the hardest part. People feel safe around those who get them. And when you mirror someone authentically, they feel understood. Even if you said barely anything at all. In one study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, waitresses who mirrored their customers' verbal and nonverbal behaviors received double the tips compared to those who didn't. Why? Because customers felt seen. Now here's where the Stoic angle comes in. Epictetus once said, We have two ears and one mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. The echo trick starts with observation, not performance. The more you listen, the more you absorb someone's emotional tone, rhythm, and personality. Then, like an emotional chameleon, you gently reflect it back. Not to deceive, but to connect. This technique works with bosses, with strangers, with friends, with romantic partners. Not because you're changing who you are, but because you're respecting who they are. And people trust those who respect their emotional space. So next time you're in a conversation and want to build instant rapport, don't reach for the perfect words. Start by echoing the ones already spoken. Number 3, the power pause, using silence to command attention. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone who doesn't rush to speak? Someone who takes a breath before they respond? Who isn't afraid of silence? You lean in, you wait, you listen harder. That's the power pause, a psychological trick used by leaders, negotiators, and even ancient philosophers to capture attention, project confidence, and maintain control in any conversation. Because silence is not the absence of communication, it's a signal, a message, a tool. Used right, it can make you magnetic. Let's break it down. Why silence is so powerful. In psychology, silence causes cognitive tension. People don't like it. It makes the brain itch to fill the gap. And whoever controls the pause controls the room. A well-timed pause before you speak makes people lean in. A pause after you speak makes your words land deeper. Think about Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor. When he wrote Meditations, he didn't shout his philosophy from the rooftops. He sat in silence. He reflected. He understood that the space between thoughts is where clarity lives. In fact, many of his greatest insights are delivered in short, deliberate lines. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. He didn't perform wisdom. He paused and let it speak for itself. Where to use the power pause? Here are 3 ways to use this trick today. 1. Before answering a question, instead of replying instantly, try a 1-second pause. This signals that you're processing, not reacting. It makes your response feel more thoughtful and more valuable. 2. After making a strong statement. Example, I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to be respected. Pause. Let the silence hang. Let echo. Let the weight of your words do the heavy lifting. 3. When tension is high. When someone expects you to explode or defend yourself, don't. Just pause. Let your calm be unsettling. Let your stillness be your shield. What signals to others? Control. You're not rattled. You own the moment. Confidence. You don't need to rush to prove yourself. Presence. You're fully there, not scrambling in your head. The power pause says, I don't chase the conversation. I lead it. Now here's the twist. Using silence isn't about playing games. It's about mastering your internal tempo. Seneca, another Stoic, wrote, We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Often, the urge to fill space comes from insecurity. We talk fast, interrupt, over-explain, just to kill the silence. But silence isn't your enemy. It's your edge. Practice this. Next time someone finishes talking, count 1, 2 in your head before responding. You'll be shocked how powerful you feel. How much more control you suddenly have over your tone, your words, your presence. So remember, it's not about talking more. It's about saying less with more gravity. Let your pauses speak louder than noise ever could. Number 4, the anchoring effect. How framing influences decisions. What if I told you the first number you hear in a conversation could control what you believe is fair? Or that the way something is framed, not the actual facts, can make you say yes when you should have said no? Welcome to the anchoring effect, a cognitive bias so subtle, so invisible, that it works on everyone, even you. This mind trick isn't magic. It's science. And when you learn to use it intentionally, it becomes your secret weapon in persuasion, negotiation, and influence. Let's dive in. What is the anchoring effect? Psychologists Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize winners, by the way, discovered this. When people make decisions, they rely heavily on the first piece of information offered, the anchor. Here's an example. Let's say I ask you, was Gandhi older or younger than 140 when he died? Your brain goes, whoa, 140? That's too old. But maybe he was 90. Now compare that to, was Gandhi older or younger than 35 when he died? Suddenly, people guess much younger, even if they know better, because the first number changes the range your brain considers. The anchor plants a seed, and everything that follows is filtered through that lens. How it affects you every day. Think about this. In salary negotiations, the first number thrown out often becomes the center of gravity. In pricing, $999 feels cheaper than $1,000, not because it is, but because of how our brain processes anchors. In relationships, if your first impression of someone is high status, you unconsciously interpret their flaws as quirks, not red flags. It's not just what you hear. It's when you hear it. How to use it strategically. Let's say you're in a conversation that matters, pitching an idea, asking for a raise, negotiating anything. Here's the Stoic approach. Don't leave perception to others. Control it from the start. That's anchoring. You set the frame. You speak first. You establish the emotional and logical ground the rest of the dialogue will stand on. Step 1. Set the tone early. Open the conversation with calm, clear conviction. Your emotional tone becomes the anchor for how the rest is received. I've spent the last 6 months studying results across the company, and here's what I found that feels different than I want to talk about something. Step 2, anchor the value. Instead of asking what someone is willing to give, anchor the value of what you bring. Based on my research and what I've delivered, I believe a 20 adjustment reflects the true scope of my contribution. Now the conversation starts there. Even if they negotiate lower, you're still above what you might have gotten without anchoring at all. The Stoic tie-in. Epictetus said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." Anchoring is how judgments are formed. If you let others frame your reality, you surrender your power. But if you learn to anchor, emotionally, verbally, contextually, you become the one who shapes how others see value. You're not manipulating. You're leading. With clarity, intention, and poise. Try this. Pick a conversation today, just one. Before you go in, ask, what do I want them to feel first? Then anchor that feeling with your first words, your tone, or your presence. The first move isn't just a step. It's a signal. Master anchoring, and you'll stop reacting to life and start steering it. Number 5, the mirror technique, making people instantly like you. Have you ever met someone for the first time and instantly felt like, I don't know what it is, but I like this person? Chances are they were using the mirror technique. Whether consciously or unconsciously, they made you feel seen, understood, in sync. And here's the real mind trick. People don't fall in love with you. They fall in love with how they feel about themselves when they're around you. Let's unpack this powerful psychological principle that works on everyone, from strangers to CEOs to someone you just met at a coffee shop. What is the mirror technique? In psychology, it's called mirroring, subtly imitating another person's body language, tone of voice, pace of speech, or even choice of words. But this isn't just mimicry. Done right, it activates a deep part of our brain that's wired for connection. When someone mirrors us, we feel safe, similar, understood. It's a primal cue, a biological signal that says, you're like me. And in a world where most people feel ignored or invisible, this is powerful. Marcus Aurelius and the ancient mirror. Let's bring in our Stoic anchor, Marcus Aurelius. In his private writings, meditations, he often reminded himself, whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? That's a form of psychological mirroring. Instead of reacting to what he saw in others, Marcus trained himself to reflect within first, to recognize shared human traits, to see others not as separate but as mirrors. That level of internal discipline created external harmony. He was the emperor of Rome, but his true power was the ability to connect deeply without needing to dominate. How to use mirroring in real life. Step 1. Mirror body language subtly. Sit or stand in a way that gently echoes the posture of the person you're talking to. If they lean in, you lean slightly. If they use expressive hand gestures, mirror that energy. Not like a robot. Naturally. Softly. Respectfully. This creates subconscious rapport. It tells their nervous system, we're in sync. Step 2. Mirror energy and tone. Fast taika. Match the rhythm. Calm, quiet speaker. Soften your tone. When you speak in the same tempo, people feel emotionally comfortable. You don't need to be like them. You just need to meet them. Step 3. Mirror their words. If someone says, I feel stuck and overwhelmed lately, you respond with, that makes sense. Feeling stuck can be really heavy. You're using their words to validate their world. It's not manipulation. It's recognition. The real secret. The mirror technique isn't about copying people. It's about paying attention. And that's what makes it rare. Because most people aren't listening. They're waiting to speak. But when you truly listen, when you observe and reflect someone's emotional tone and rhythm, you do something unforgettable. You make them feel like they matter. And the human brain rewards that. Practical example. Next time you're talking to someone, pause and ask yourself, how can I make them feel understood in the next 30 seconds? Not agreed with. Not impressed. Just understood. That small act changes everything. Because people may forget your words. They may forget your face. But they never forget how you made them feel. Mirror that, and you'll be unforgettable. Number 6. The Benjamin Franklin effect. Turn enemies into allies. Let's say there's someone who just doesn't like you. They avoid eye contact. They're cold. Maybe even passive-aggressive. Your instinct might be to avoid them, or worse, prove them wrong. But what if I told you the way to win them over is to ask them for a favor? Sounds backwards, right? Yet this is one of the oldest psychological tricks in the book. It's called the Benjamin Franklin effect, and when used wisely, it can transform tension into trust, even in the toughest situations. Let's break it down. The true story behind the effect. Benjamin Franklin once had a political rival, someone who openly disliked him. Instead of confronting or criticizing him, Franklin did something unexpected. He wrote to this rival and asked to borrow a rare book from his library. Surprisingly, the man agreed. A few days later, Franklin returned the book with a thoughtful thank you note. After that, the man who once disliked Franklin became one of his biggest supporters. Franklin explained it like this. He that has once done you a kindness will be more ready to do you another than he whom you yourself have obliged. In other words, if someone helps you, their brain rewires to justify it. They start to see you more favorably because they've already invested effort into you. The Stoic parallel, Epictetus and the power of perception. Let's bring in Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who taught that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When people mistreat you or doubt you, your reaction defines the outcome. Stoicism doesn't mean being passive. It means choosing your response wisely. Franklin chose curiosity over conflict. He turned resistance into rapport, not by dominating, but by engaging. That's strategic stoicism in action. Why this works, the psychology behind the favor. This trick is rooted in cognitive dissonance. When someone helps you, their brain subconsciously thinks, I must like this person, otherwise why would I go out of my way? They don't realize they're warming up to you. But they are. It flips the emotional script. Instead of you proving yourself, they become invested in your story. And that's powerful. How you can use this today. 1. Identify tension or coldness. Is there someone in your life, work, family, social circle, who seems distant or dismissive? 2. Ask a small favor. It could be advice, an introduction, or their opinion on something they care about. Example. Hey, I know you've been working on XYZ. Would love your thoughts on this idea I'm exploring. 3. Express sincere gratitude. Follow up with a thank you message that shows appreciation. 4. Repeat. Over time, Their perspective of you shifts from stranger or rival to ally. Important. This only works if it's genuine. Don't fake it. Don't ask favors to manipulate. The real mind trick here is that humans are wired for connection, even if they resist it at first. By giving someone the opportunity to feel helpful, valuable, and wise, you invite them into a shared story. And stories change minds far more than arguments ever will. Final thought. In a world obsessed with proving others wrong, this technique flips the game. You don't win by attacking. You win by engaging, thoughtfully, tactfully, and with humility. Just like Franklin, just like the Stoics, and just like any wise person who knows that influence isn't forced, it's earned. Number 7, the spotlight effect. How to use insecurity to build influence. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like everyone was watching you? Like they were silently judging your outfit, your words, your every move? That anxious, self-conscious feeling. It's called the spotlight effect, a psychological phenomenon where we overestimate how much others notice us. But here's the twist. While most people shrink under this pressure, confident individuals leverage it. They use this invisible spotlight not as a threat, but as a tool of influence. What is the spotlight effect? The spotlight effect was coined by psychologists Gilovich, Medvec, and Savitsky. In one experiment, they made students wear an embarrassing t-shirt, think a big picture of Barry Manilow, and walk into a room of strangers. The wearer felt humiliated and was sure everyone noticed the shirt. But here's what they found. While the wearer assumed 50 of people noticed, in reality, only 23 did. Why? Because most people are thinking about themselves, not you. They're worried about how they appear, what they sound like, and how they will be judged. That realization is liberating. Epictetus and internal power. Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The spotlight effect is that exact idea. We imagine we're under judgment, but the reality is far more forgiving. Confidence begins the moment you internalize this truth. No one is thinking about you as much as you are. So what do confident people do? They stop performing for imaginary critics and start acting in alignment with their values, freely, fully, and unapologetically. The flip, how to use the spotlight instead. Once you're no longer paralyzed by the spotlight, you can flip it outward. Here's how confident people use it as a social advantage. 1. They make others feel seen. When most people are focused on themselves, a confident person flips the light and focuses on you. They listen more. They remember details. They ask meaningful questions. This creates instant connection because you feel important in their presence. And guess what? The people who make others feel seen are the ones others remember the most. 2. They walk into rooms with intentional energy. Knowing that people might glance their way, they own the moment. Shoulders back, calm demeanor, purposeful eye contact, a relaxed, unbothered pace. It's not arrogance. It's presence, and it radiates without a word. 3. They build trust through calm, non-reactivity. When something awkward happens, a stumble, a misspeak, a silence, most panic. But confident people don't flinch. They know others are too busy worrying about themselves. And that calm response tells the room, "I've got this. Nothing shakes me." A mind trick you can use right now. The next time you walk into a room or social situation and feel that creeping anxiety, do this. 1. Pause and breathe. 2. Remind yourself, everyone else is thinking about themselves, just like me. 3. Choose one person to make feel seen. Ask a question, give a compliment, or simply be present. Suddenly, the spotlight isn't on you. You're holding the light and using it to lead. That shift in perspective, it's subtle, but it's magnetic. Confidence isn't about perfection, it's about perception. The people you admire for their confidence, they feel fear too. They just understand the psychology of attention. They know that the spotlight is rarely as harsh as it feels. And even when it shines, they stand still, they breathe, and they own it. Number 8, the mirror technique. How to make anyone like you instantly. You walk into a coffee shop. You greet the barista with a warm, "Hey, how's your day?" They smile, mirror your energy, and suddenly, it's a great interaction. You feel connected, understood, liked. But here's the hidden truth behind that moment. Mirroring is one of the most powerful psychological tricks you can use to build instant rapport, and confident people master it without others ever realizing. This isn't manipulation. It's subconscious empathy in action. Let's break it down. What is the mirror technique? Mirroring, at its core, is when you subtly reflect another person's body language, vocal tone, energy level, pacing, even choice of words, and when done intentionally, but subtly, it communicates one thing. You and I, we're the same. Why does this matter? Because at a primal level, we trust those who feel familiar, and we like those who reflect us back to us. That's why confident people don't just talk at others. They adapt, observe, and reflect. It builds trust. First, the Stoic connection, Seneca and empathy. Seneca, one of Rome's greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness." This idea is at the heart of mirroring. True confidence isn't about dominating the room. It's about harmonizing with it. It's about making others feel safe, understood, and emotionally met where they are. That's what mirroring allows you to do. Create emotional resonance without even speaking a word. Real-life story, the leader who listened. There's a powerful story from a Harvard negotiation study. A group was split into two teams. One trained in hard negotiation, the other trained in active listening and mirroring techniques. The mirroring group not only closed more deals, they built deeper relationships, earned higher trust, and were remembered more positively. Why? Because mirroring bypasses the brain's threat detection. It says, "I see you. I'm like you. You're safe with me." In a world where everyone is trying to prove themselves, the person who listens and adapts becomes magnetic. How to practice the mirror technique without being creepy. Mirroring should never feel robotic. The key is subtlety and presence. Step 1. Observe before you react. When you meet someone, take 5 to 10 seconds to study. How are they holding themselves? What's their tone? Soft, assertive, excited? Are they using gestures or keeping still? Step 2. Gently match their energy. If they speak slowly, slow down a bit. If they lean in slightly. If they're using expressive hands, loosen up your own posture. Not mimicry, synchronization. Step 3. Use reflective language. If they use the phrase, "I've been grinding lately," you can respond with, "Yeah, I totally get that grind mindset. It can be exhausting." Repeating small language patterns builds subconscious connection. Step 4. Watch their response. If they relax more, you've nailed it. If they tense or shift away, ease off. It's about comfort, not performance. Bonus. Mirroring works on you too. Want to boost your own confidence? Mirror the body language of someone you admire. Studies show that acting confident, power posing, strong voice, deep breathing can rewire your brain chemistry to feel more confident. In other words, don't wait to feel confident. Mirror the confident version of yourself, and your mind will follow. Mirror with integrity. This technique is powerful. But remember, it's not about manipulation. It's about connection. Confident people don't fake interest. They use mirroring to amplify their empathy, to make others feel heard and respected. And that is how influence begins. With presence, with understanding, with one human mirroring another. Number 9, how confident people control conversations without forcing anything. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like the other person ran the show, but you enjoyed every second of it? You didn't feel manipulated. You didn't feel overpowered. You felt drawn in. That's because confident people know how to control the direction of conversations, not through dominance, but through influence and emotional gravity. And it's not about talking more. It's about guiding with intention. Let's unpack how they do it. The conversation myth. Most people think controlling a conversation means speaking the most, interrupting to steer the topic, outwitting, or out-debating the other person, but confident communicators understand something deeper. The person who asks the best questions controls the conversation, not by force, but by focus, because questions direct attention, and attention is power. Marcus Aurelius' silent strength. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor of Rome, rarely shouted, rarely imposed. Instead, he asked. He reflected. He guided those around him through inquiry, not instruction. In his private journal, Meditations, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Confident conversation is the same. The resistance you feel when someone goes off topic, that's your invitation, not to overpower, but to guide gently. Like a river shaping stone, quiet power. The framework, command without control. Here are 4 ways confident people guide conversations without ever needing to take over. 1. They use tactical silence. Most people rush to fill awkward pauses. Not confident people. They use silence like punctuation, letting their words land, letting the other person lean in. They understand that silence increases perceived value. The quieter the room, the more you listen. Try this. After asking a deep question like, what's something you've never told anyone but wish people understood about you? Pause. Let them think. Let the moment breathe. 2. They master the power of framing. Confident speakers don't just speak facts. They shape how facts are perceived. For example, it's not just that you failed. It's that now you know how far you're willing to push yourself. They reframe failure as growth, awkwardness as vulnerability, conflict as connection. Framing controls emotion, and emotion controls the conversation. 3. They guide with bridge statements. When a topic veers off course, confident people don't resist it head-on. They redirect it with statements like, "That's interesting. You know, it reminded me of something I've been thinking about. You mentioned X earlier, which ties into something I found really powerful. Before I forget, I'd love to get your take on." These are invisible steering wheels. They don't jolt the passenger. They simply adjust the path. 4. They use emotional anchors. Confident people pay attention to emotional moments and anchor the conversation to them. Example, if someone shares something personal, they say, "You mentioned earlier that part felt like rock bottom. That stuck with me. What helped you get out?" Now, the conversation deepens. Now, they're not just talking, they're feeling. And when people feel something, they remember the person who made them feel it. Why this works on everyone. People are drawn to those who make them feel understood, respected, seen, safe, and confident. Conversationalists create all 4, not by dominating, but by orchestrating. They don't grab the spotlight. They become the spotlight by directing where others look. They don't overpower the conversation. They become its quiet conductor. Quick practice challenge. Next time you're in a conversation, try this 3-step play. 1. Ask a meaningful question. What's been on your mind lately? 2. Pause. Let silence do the work. Resist the urge to fill it. 3. Guide with a bridge. That reminds me of, share something valuable. Watch how the dynamic shifts. Watch how the energy starts to orbit around your calm confidence. You don't need to talk over people to be remembered. Just talk to them like they matter. Because confidence isn't noise. It's gravity. Number 10. Emotional echoes. The secret to being unforgettable in any interaction. Think about someone who left a lasting impression on you. It wasn't what they wore. It wasn't even what they said. It was how they made you feel. That feeling? That's the emotional echo. It lingers long after the conversation ends. And confident people, real, magnetic ones, create these echoes on purpose. They understand that in a world full of noise, logic rarely sticks. But emotion always does. The hidden currency of influence. Most people try to impress others with their achievements, their stories, their intelligence, but confident individuals play a different game. They ask, how can I leave someone better than I found them? That shift from self-focus to impact focus is what creates emotional echoes. Because people don't remember your facts. They remember your energy. Seneca's secret. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher and advisor to Emperor Nero, understood this. He wrote, "A good character, when established, cannot be concealed. It will always show itself." But here's the part most people miss. Seneca didn't just preach Stoicism. He practiced it in the way he made people feel safe, seen, and stronger. He once said, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness." That's not just philosophy. That's emotional legacy. 3 techniques to create emotional echoes that work on anyone. These aren't manipulative tricks. These are genuine practices that align with human nature and Stoic wisdom. Let's break them down. 1. Mirror their emotional state, then lead them higher. This is the essence of emotional resonance. If someone's anxious, don't tell them to relax. Start where they are. That sounds really overwhelming. I've had moments where everything felt too heavy too. Then gently shift. But I found that sometimes those moments are just a signal that something powerful is about to change. You mirrored, then elevated. Now they feel understood and hopeful. 2. Name the unspoken. Confident people say what others feel, but can't quite articulate. They notice the small tension in your voice, the hesitation in your story, the spark in your eyes when you talk about a dream. And then they say, "It sounds like this really matters to you. I get the sense you've been carrying this alone for a while. You light up when you talk about this. What's stopping you from going all in?" When you name the unspoken, it creates instant emotional clarity. That's unforgettable. 3. Leave with a thought that lingers. End every conversation with a line that sticks, like the final note of a great song. Not advice, not a cliche, a feeling wrapped in words. Examples. Whatever happens, you've already survived worse. Don't forget, you're someone's example right now. If your younger self could see you now, I think they'd be proud. These aren't just words. They're emotional anchors. They echo. Bonus: how to practice this instantly. Right now, open your messages. Send a voice note or a simple text to someone close to you, just thinking about how far you've come. I know it hasn't been easy. I'm proud of you. Watch what happens. Not just to them, but to you. Because creating emotional echoes doesn't just make you memorable. It builds your own confidence quietly, deeply, powerfully. Final thought. Confidence isn't about walking into a room and needing attention. It's about walking into someone's life and leaving meaning. People forget faces. They forget facts. But they never forget how you made them feel. That's the echo. That's the advantage. That's the mark of true, unshakable confidence. The quiet fire of true confidence. So, what do we really uncovered here? Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't shout, posture, or demand the spotlight. It's quiet, intentional, rooted in a deep, unshakable understanding of who you are and how you move through the world. You've seen how truly confident people don't chase validation. They attract it. Not by pretending, but by mastering the inner world before trying to impress the outer one. Let's recap what sets them apart. They own their energy before entering any room. They understand that emotions drive everything and use that to guide interactions. They're stoic in chaos. Knowing what they control and what they don't, they communicate with purpose and clarity, not to impress, but to connect. They create emotional echoes, leaving others better, stronger, lighter stoicism at the core. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And that's the real essence here. Confidence begins as a thought. It becomes a habit. Then it radiates out as a presence you carry, silently, powerfully. You don't need to fake it. You don't need to be the loudest in the room. You just need to believe deeply, act consistently, and show up with the quiet fire of someone who knows they're enough, without needing anyone to tell them so. If this resonated with you, don't let the momentum stop here. Subscribe to this channel if you're building a stronger, unshakable version of yourself like this video. To let us know this message mattered, share it with someone who needs to remember their own power, because sometimes one video is all it takes to light the fire again. Stay strong, stay grounded, and remember, you were built for more than survival. You were built to lead, to inspire, to stand tall, silently, confidently.